On tonight, we will start a new series, Studies in Romans, in particular Romans chapter 12 and perhaps Romans chapter 13. On tonight, we will begin this series by looking at Romans chapter 12 and verse number 1. As you're turning to Romans chapter 12, finding verse number 1, I want to ask you some questions, just some thought-provoking questions. What is it that you want from someone, or you expect someone to give you or to do for you? What ministry or teaching at your church would just put you on another high spiritually? What do you believe God has done for you? If given the chance, what would you change right now? I'm talking about something that would better serve you, your preferences, your desires, your wants, or your needs. With these types of questions, we always can come to an answer. Generally, we can easily answer the questions, but we can always think of what we want, what we like, what we need, and how our feelings can be accommodated. But just as we think about what we want or desire, how often do we think about what we owe to others, what we owe to the Lord? How often do we obsess about what more should I be doing? How much more can I give? How much more can I serve? As you look at Romans chapter 12 and verse 1, there is a word there that we don't like, at least when it comes to our having to be the person to act on the word. It's the word sacrifice. He says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. We've read this verse many times, but when do we really put into application that we ought to be a living sacrifice? Historically speaking, and those of the first century would not have understood what Paul meant, at least at first glance, because sacrifices under the Jewish economy was always something that was killed. It was something put on the altar. In your personal Bible study, you can read about the burnt offering of the sacrifices that were put on the altar. So to consider a living sacrifice, how can it be a sacrifice if it's still living? When we think about the word sacrifice, it means something that cost you. It means it benefits someone else. Do you do it in obligation, or do you do it out of love? Think about the fact that God sacrificed his son for us. John 3:16. Romans 3 verses 24 and 25. Other scriptures support the very thought of God's sacrificial efforts to save our souls. But do you ever really think about, what do I owe God? While it is easy to think about what the church can do for me and shop around trying to find the place that suits my preferences, you ever think about, how can I suit God's preferences? So what do you owe God? What do you owe his people? What sacrifices have you made and are willing to make? One of the things about a sacrifice and giving back to God and serving in his kingdom is quite the opposite of how most people think. Most people tend to find comfort in congregations and in places that fit their preferences. Have you ever thought about saying, Lord, put me where you need me, where you want me to be, how I can best serve? Always remember, it's not about us. It's always about the God that we serve. So, just as easily as we can come to conclusions as to what we want, how our preferences can be met, how our desires can be filled, maybe we need to spend some time praying, not asking God for bigger, better, or more, but saying, Lord, since I've had bigger, better, and more, how can I give you bigger, better, and more? What more can you get out of me? Certainly, we want to worship God for all of eternity in heaven above. But what is God getting out of you right now? This has been another installment of A Few Minutes with the Minister.